The doorbell rang at 3:47 in the morning, and I knew before I opened my eyes that something was wrong. I've learned to trust that feeling, the cold dread that settles in your stomach like a stone. It's the same feeling I had the night the police came to tell me they'd found Michael's car abandoned on the side of Route 9, the driver's door hanging open, the engine still running. It's the same feeling I had when they stopped searching after 6 months. The same feeling I had when they found his body in the woods 2 years later, decomposed beyond recognition, identified only by his wedding ring and dental records. That feeling has never been wrong. I lay in bed for a moment, listening. The doorbell rang again, then a knock, then a voice. "Sarah? Sarah, it's me. Why won't the key work?" My heart stopped. I knew that voice. I'd heard it in my dreams every night for 3 years. I'd played our voicemails over and over until my phone died and I lost them forever. I'd forgotten the exact cadence of it, the way he slightly mumbled his vowels, the warmth that wrapped around every word he spoke. But I knew that voice. It was Michael's. I'm writing this because I need someone to understand what happened. I need someone to believe me when I say that I'm not crazy, that I didn't imagine it, that the thing standing on my porch that night was wearing my husband's face but was not my husband. I need someone to know the truth before it's too late, because he's still here, and he's starting to remember. Michael and I met 12 years ago at a conference in Seattle. He was presenting research on something I didn't understand, quantum something or other, and I was covering the event for a tech magazine that no longer exists. He was brilliant and awkward and had a smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We got married 14 months later in a small ceremony by the ocean, with only our closest friends and family. His mother cried. My father gave a toast that made everyone laugh. It was the happiest day of my life. We had a good life. A small house in Vermont with a garden I never managed to keep alive. 2 cats named after physicists, Schrödinger and Curie. Weekend hikes and Sunday morning pancakes and arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes. Normal things, happy things, the kind of life that seems so fragile now, looking back. Michael worked at a research facility about an hour from our house. He never talked much about what he did there. Something classified, he said. Something that mattered. He'd come home late sometimes, distracted, muttering about equations and thresholds, and something he called the membrane. I never pushed. I trusted him. Maybe I should have asked more questions. Maybe if I'd understood what he was working on, I could have stopped him. But I didn't. I just loved him and let him work, and assumed everything would be fine. The night he disappeared, he'd called me from the lab. His voice was strange, excited and afraid at the same time. I remember sitting up in bed, suddenly wide awake, knowing that something important was happening. "Sarah, we did it. We actually did it." "Did what?" "I can't explain now. I'm coming home. There's so much I need to tell you." That was the last time I heard his voice, until 3 years later, when he rang my doorbell at 3:47 in the morning. I got out of bed slowly. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was a dream, that I'd wake up any moment, that this couldn't be real because Michael was dead. I'd stood at his grave. I'd thrown dirt on his coffin. I'd watched them lower him into the ground while I sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. The knocking continued. "Sarah? I don't understand. Why did you change the locks? Let me in. It's cold out here." I walked down the stairs like I was moving through water. Each step felt impossible. The front door had a window beside it, frosted glass that blurred everything into shapes and colors. I could see a figure standing on the porch, tall, broad shoulders, The same posture Michael always had, slightly hunched, like he was apologizing for taking up space. I turned on the porch light, and there he was. Michael. My Michael. Standing on my porch in the same clothes he'd been wearing the night he disappeared. The blue Oxford shirt I'd bought him for his birthday. The khakis with the small tear near the pocket. His brown leather jacket, the one that smelled like coffee and old books. He looked exactly the same. Not a day older. Not a single gray hair on his head. Not a single new line on his face. He looked at me through the glass and smiled. "There you are," he said. "Sarah, what's going on? Why won't my key work?" I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. "Sarah, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." He laughed at that. The same laugh he'd always had, warm and slightly embarrassed. But there was something underneath it. Something hollow. Something that echoed in a way laughter shouldn't. I opened the door. I don't know why I did it. Every instinct told me to run, to call the police, to scream. But my body moved on its own, my hand reaching for the deadbolt, my fingers turning the lock. And then, the door was open, and he was standing in front of me, close enough to touch. "Thank God," he said. "I've been driving for hours. The highway was completely empty. I don't think I saw a single car the whole way." He stepped inside like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he hadn't been dead for 2 years, like we hadn't buried him in the cemetery on Maple Street, plot 127, next to his mother. "Michael," I whispered. "Michael, where have you been?" He looked at me with confusion in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I was at the lab. We had a breakthrough. I called you, don't you remember? I said I was coming home. That was 3 years ago." He laughed again, but this time it faltered. His smile flickered like a candle in the wind. 3 years? Sarah, that's crazy. I just left work a few hours ago. I would have been home sooner, but the roads were strange, empty, and there was fog, so much fog, I could barely see. He looked around the living room and his smile faded completely. "You moved the furniture. Michael, you need to listen to me. And where's Schrödinger? Where's Curie? The cats that had died, one from old age, one from a car, in the years since he'd been gone. The cats I'd buried in the backyard, next to the garden I'd finally learned to keep alive. Michael, sit down, please." He sat on the couch, in his spot, the same spot he'd always sat in. He looked at me with those eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago, and I felt something inside me crack. "Sarah, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" I told him. I don't know how I found the words, but I told him everything. The night he disappeared, the search, parties, the months of waiting, finding his body in the woods, the funeral, the grief that nearly killed me, the 2 years I'd spent trying to rebuild my life. He listened without speaking. His face went pale, then gray. His hands started shaking. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "That's not possible," he finally said. "I'm right here. I'm alive. I can't be dead. I saw your body, Michael. Then it wasn't me. It was someone else. A mistake. They identified you by your dental records, by your wedding ring." He looked down at his left hand, at the gold band on his finger, the same ring I'd slipped on his finger the day we got married, the same ring I'd buried with him. "I don't understand," he said, and his voice broke. "I don't understand what's happening. I should have called someone, the police, a doctor, someone who could explain this, who could tell me I wasn't losing my mind. But I didn't, because sitting there on the couch, looking scared and confused and impossibly alive, was my husband, the man I loved, the man I'd mourned for years. I couldn't turn him away. That first night, we talked until dawn. He told me about the breakthrough at the lab, the experiment that had finally worked after years of failures. They'd been trying to create a stable opening, he said, a door between here and somewhere else. Somewhere else? Another place, another version of things. We called it the membrane, the barrier between our reality and whatever lies beyond it. We didn't fully understand it ourselves. But we did it, Sarah. We opened the door. And then what? He shook his head slowly. I don't remember. I remember calling you. I remember getting in my car. And then I was on the highway, driving home, and everything felt wrong. The road was too long, the fog was too thick. And when I got here, the locks were changed, and you looked at me like I was a stranger. You were gone for 3 years, Michael. But I don't remember any of it. I swear to you, Sarah. I got in my car and I drove home. That's all I did. I watched his face as he spoke, looking for a lie, looking for some sign that this was a trick, a hallucination, a cruel joke. But all I saw was Michael, confused, frightened, impossibly present Michael. When the sun came up, I made him coffee. He drank it the same way he always had, 2 sugars, a splash of cream. He made the same face he'd always made at the first sip, a little wince, followed by a satisfied sigh. He was the same. Every detail, every mannerism, every tiny habit, he was exactly the same as the day he'd left. And that's when I first realized something was wrong. 3 years. 3 years of life that should have changed him. 3 years of experiences that should have left their mark. But he was frozen, preserved, like a photograph that had somehow stepped off the page. People change. Even over weeks, over months. They pick up new habits, lose old ones. Their faces shift in subtle ways. Their voices deepen or soften. They are not, cannot be, exactly the same. But Michael was. That first week, I tried to convince myself it was a miracle. My husband had come back to me. Whatever had happened, whatever explanation science or God could offer, he was here, alive, home. I called in sick to work. I didn't contact anyone. I just wanted time with him, time to understand, time to make sense of the impossible. Michael was quiet during those first days. He spent hours staring out the window, watching the street like he was waiting for something. He'd start sentences and forget to finish them. He'd call me by name and then look confused, like he wasn't sure why. Michael, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm just tired. But he never slept. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find his side of the bed empty. He'd be downstairs, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? I'm not sure I need to anymore. The first strange thing happened on the 3rd night. I woke at 2 a.m. and heard voices downstairs. Not the television, not the radio. Voices, multiple voices whispering in a language I didn't recognize. I crept down the stairs, my heart pounding, and found Michael sitting in the living room, alone. But the whispers continued, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Who's here? I asked. Michael, who are you talking to? He looked at me, and for just a moment, his eyes were wrong. The pupils were too large, stretching almost to the edges of his irises. They're trying to tell me something, he said. I can almost understand them. Who? The others, the ones who came before. Then he blinked, and his eyes were normal again, and he smiled at me like nothing had happened. Did you say something, Sarah? I must have been daydreaming. On the 4th night, I woke to find him standing over me, just standing there, in the dark, watching me sleep. His eyes were open but empty, like he was looking at something I couldn't see. "Michael?" He didn't respond. "Michael, you're scaring me." He blinked, looked around, looked at me like he was surprised to see me there. "Sorry," he said. "I was somewhere else for a moment." "Where?" He shook his head. "I don't know. I can't remember. But it was dark, Sarah. So dark. And there were things in the dark. Things that knew my name." He went back to bed after that, but I didn't sleep. I lay there watching him, watching the rise and fall of his chest, and I noticed something I hadn't before. He wasn't breathing. His chest moved, up and down, but when I pressed my ear against his back, I heard nothing. No heartbeat, no rush of air, just silence. A silence so complete it felt like falling into a void. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was imagining it, but the next morning, I watched him more carefully. I watched him eat breakfast, and I realized I never saw him swallow. The food went into his mouth and disappeared, but I never saw his throat move. I watched him drink coffee, and I never saw him set down the cup, not once. Every time I looked away and looked back, it was simply full again. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything I noticed, every detail that didn't add up. He cast no shadow when the light hit him from certain angles. His reflection in the bathroom mirror was always a half-second delayed. He knew things he shouldn't know, like what I dreamed about the night before, like what I was about to say before I said it. And he was starting to remember. It came in fragments at first. He'd stop, mid-sentence, and say something strange. There were others, in the dark. They were waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to open the door, for someone to let them through. Then he'd blink and shake his head and smile that smile that wasn't quite right. What were we talking about? The second week brought new terrors. I woke one morning to find all the mirrors in the house covered with sheets. When I asked Michael why, he said he couldn't stand to look at himself anymore. Every time I see my reflection, it's not quite right. It moves a half-second too slow. And sometimes, when I'm not looking directly at it, it does things I'm not doing. I pulled the sheet off the bathroom mirror to check. My reflection was normal. Michael's reflection was behind me, even though he was still in the bedroom. It smiled at me. I covered the mirror again. That afternoon, I found photographs scattered across the kitchen table. Photographs from our wedding, from vacations, from ordinary days I'd forgotten. In every single one, Michael's face had been scratched out, not cut, not torn. Scratched with something sharp, like fingernails. "Did you do this?" He looked at the photographs with genuine confusion. "No, I don't remember doing that." "Then who did?" "Maybe it was me," he said quietly. "Maybe it was the part of me that remembers what I really look like now, what I've become." I started finding other things. Dead birds on the windowsills, their necks twisted at impossible angles. Handprints on the walls in rooms where no one had been. Handprints with too many fingers. Words scratched into the wooden floor of the hallway, in languages I didn't recognize, languages that hurt to read. One night, I heard Michael talking in his sleep, not just mumbling, but speaking clearly, in a voice that wasn't his. A voice that was deeper, older, and somehow wet, like speaking through water. "She's almost ready," the voice said. "The anchor is almost set. Soon we won't need the vessel anymore." "Who's ready?" I whispered, even though I knew he was asleep. "Michael, who's almost ready?" He sat up in bed, his eyes still closed. "She is," he said. The mother, the one who waits in the deep. She's been calling your name for so long, Sarah. She can't wait to meet you. Then he lay back down and didn't wake until morning. I found him in the basement one night. We never used the basement. It was dark and damp and full of old boxes from our move years ago. But there he was, kneeling on the concrete floor, drawing symbols in chalk. Strange symbols, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move when I looked at them too long. Some of them looked almost like eyes. Others looked like mouths, open and screaming. "What are you doing?" He looked up at me, and his face was covered in chalk dust, white as bone. "Mapping the way back," he said. "I need to remember how I got here, how I got through." Through what? The membrane, the barrier, the space between? There's a path, Sarah. A road through the darkness. I walked it once, and now I'm trying to show others how to follow. Michael, please, come upstairs. This isn't like you. He stood up slowly, looked at the symbols on the floor, looked at me. I don't know who I am anymore, Sarah. I have his memories, his feelings, his love for you. But there's something else inside me now. Something that came through with me. Something that's growing stronger every day. The chalk symbols began to glow. A faint, pulsing light, like something was breathing beneath the concrete. I heard sounds coming from below us, from somewhere deep under the foundation. Sounds like whispers, sounds like laughter, sounds like something vast and ancient, stirring in its sleep. I grabbed his hand and pulled him upstairs. I locked the basement door. The next morning, when I checked, the symbols were gone. The floor was clean. But in the corner of the basement, I found something I hadn't seen before. A door. Not a real door. A door drawn on the wall in chalk, perfect and detailed, with a handle and hinges and a small window at the top. But when I looked through the window, I didn't see the wall behind it. I saw darkness, moving darkness, and in that darkness, I saw eyes, hundreds of eyes, watching me, waiting for me to open the door. I painted over it 3 times. Each morning, it was back. The next day, I found a journal hidden under Michael's side of the bed. It was his handwriting, but the words made no sense. Page after page of the same phrase, repeated over and over. I am the door. I am the door. I am the door. Near the end, the handwriting changed, became shaky and desperate. Help me. I'm still in here. I'm still me. Please help me before they take everything. I showed him the journal. He looked at it like he'd never seen it before. I didn't write this, he said. It's your handwriting. I know, but I didn't write it. I don't remember writing it. Then who did? He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The part of me that's still fighting. I called the research facility where Michael had worked. I had to know what they'd been doing, what experiment had gone wrong, what door they'd opened, and what had come through. The number was disconnected. I drove there the next day while Michael was sitting in his spot on the couch, staring at nothing. The facility was gone, not abandoned, gone. The building that had stood there for 20 years was simply not there anymore, just an empty field, overgrown with weeds, like nothing had ever been built there at all. I found a neighbor, an old man walking his dog, and asked him about the research facility. What facility? He said. There's never been anything here, just fields, far back as I can remember. But there was a building. Scientists worked there. My husband worked there. He looked at me with pity in his eyes. Ma'am, I've lived here 60 years. There's never been no building. When I got home, Michael was waiting for me at the door. "Where did you go?" "I needed groceries." "You were at the lab." I froze. "How did you know that?" He tilted his head, and for a moment, his eyes were wrong. Too dark, too deep, like there was something vast and empty behind them. "I can see things now, Sarah. I can see everything you do. Every thought you think. Every fear you try to hide." The temperature in the room dropped. I could see my breath fogging in front of me. "Michael, what's happening to you?" I'm remembering. I'm remembering where I was, what I saw, what I became. You're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying to stay. I'm trying to be him. But it's getting harder. The door is opening wider, and the things on the other side, they're so hungry, Sarah. They've been hungry for so long." That night, I found him in the backyard, digging. He dug up the cats. Their small bodies, wrapped in the blankets I'd buried them in, lay beside two perfect holes in the earth. "What are you doing?" He looked up at me. Dirt on his hands, on his face, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I'm trying to bring them back. I can feel it, Sarah. The door, it's still open. I can bring things through." "Michael, stop. Please stop. Don't you want them back? Don't you want everything back? Your father, who died when you were 12. Your grandmother, who read you stories. Every person you ever loved and lost. I can bring them all back." He stood up, and in the moonlight, I could see that he wasn't crying at all. The tears were something else, something dark and thick, leaking from his eyes like oil. "I can give you everything you lost. I can bring back anyone, everyone. All you have to do is let me." "Let you what?" He smiled, and there were too many teeth in his mouth. "Let me open the door wider." I ran. I ran inside and locked all the doors and windows. I called the police. I told them there was an intruder in my backyard. I didn't tell them it was my dead husband, because how could I? How could I explain any of this? By the time they arrived, Michael was gone. The holes in the yard were filled in again, the grass undisturbed, like nothing had happened. The cats' graves were intact. The officers looked at me with concern, asked if I'd been drinking, asked if I had anyone to call. I said I was fine. I said I must have been dreaming, but I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. Michael came back the next morning. He knocked on the door, polite and gentle like a visitor. "I'm sorry about last night," he said through the glass. "I wasn't myself. Can I come in?" I didn't answer. "Please, Sarah, I need to explain. I need you to understand what's happening." Against every instinct, I opened the door. He sat on the couch again, in his spot. He looked tired, more tired than I'd ever seen him. The shadows under his eyes were deep, almost bruised. "The door we opened," he said quietly. "It wasn't to another dimension. It wasn't to a parallel world. It was to something else, something that doesn't have a name, a place between places, a nowhere. I don't understand. When I drove home that night, I didn't make it. Something happened. An accident, I think. I don't remember. But I didn't die, Sarah. I went somewhere else. I went through the door. For 3 years? Time doesn't exist there. Not the way it does here. I was there for an instant. I was there for eternity. I can't tell the difference anymore." "And then you came back?" He nodded slowly. "Something brought me back. Someone. I heard you, Sarah. Your grief, your longing. It called to me across the void, and I followed it home. So you are Michael. You are my husband." His eyes met mine, and I saw something flicker behind them, something that wasn't Michael at all. "I have his memories, his feelings, his love for you. But I'm not sure I'm him anymore. I'm not sure where he ends and I begin. The place between places, it changes you. It fills in the gaps with something else. What do you mean, fills in the gaps? He held up his hand. In the morning light, I could see through it. Just for a moment, just enough to see the wall behind him. I'm not completely here, he said. I'm not completely real. I'm something in between, a door that's been propped open. And things are starting to come through. I thought about the cats, the holes in the yard, the way he'd offered to bring back everyone I'd lost. What kind of things? Hungry things, lost things, things that have been waiting in the dark for so long. They've forgotten what they were. They were human once, some of them. Others were never human at all. He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to a whisper. They're using me, Sarah. My connection to you, to this world, it's like a beacon. They're following me through. And once enough of them come through, they won't need me anymore. They'll have the door wide open. How do we stop it? You have to let me go. You have to stop calling me back. I didn't call you back. You did. Every time you thought about me, every time you wished I was still alive, every tear you cried at my grave, you were calling, Sarah, and I answered. But I wasn't the only thing that heard. That night, he showed me what he meant. We went to the cemetery together, plot 127, Maple Street, next to his mother. The headstone I'd picked out, the inscription I'd chosen, beloved husband, forever in our hearts. He stood in front of his own grave and he began to change. His skin went pale, then translucent. I could see things moving beneath it, shadows, shapes, the outlines of hands pressing against the inside of his flesh, trying to get out. This is what came back with me, he said, and his voice was a chorus now, 1,000 whispers layered on top of each other. This is what's been wearing my face. The ground beneath the headstone began to shift, to crack. Something was pushing up from below. I'm not your husband anymore, Sarah. I'm the door, and the door is opening. The earth split open, and I saw it. Not a body, not a coffin, a void. A hole in the fabric of reality itself, so dark it hurt to look at. And from within that darkness, I could see eyes. Hundreds of them, thousands, all watching, all waiting. Let me go, Michael said. And there were tears on his face again. Real tears this time, not the dark oil from before. Please, Sarah, let me go. It's the only way to close it. I can't. You have to. As long as you hold on to me, as long as you refuse to accept that I'm gone, the door stays open. They'll keep coming, more and more of them, until there's nothing left. I looked at the void, at the eyes in the darkness, at the thing wearing my husband's face, begging me to release him. I thought about the night he disappeared, the way his voice had sounded on the phone, excited and afraid. We did it, he'd said. We opened the door. He'd been so proud, so certain that he was changing the world. He had no idea what he'd really done. I stepped forward. I took his face in my hands. His skin was cold, so cold, but I didn't let go. I love you, I said. I will always love you. But you're right. You're not him, not anymore. His eyes filled with something like relief. Thank you. Goodbye, Michael. I let go. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the void began to close. The eyes receded into the darkness. The hands stopped pressing against his skin. And Michael, or whatever was left of him, began to fade. Wait, he said. And his voice was his own again, just for a moment. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said that night. What? I'm sorry I didn't come home. I'm sorry I left you alone. I'm sorry for all of it. He was almost gone now, just an outline in the air, a suggestion of a shape. And Sarah, whatever happens next, don't answer the door. No matter who's knocking, no matter what they sound like, no matter how much you want to believe it's really me. Then he was gone. The ground sealed itself. The void closed. The cemetery was silent and still, like nothing had happened. I stood there until dawn, waiting for something. I don't know what. A sign. A miracle. Another knock on the door. But there was nothing. That was 3 months ago. I've tried to move on. I've tried to accept that Michael is truly gone. That whatever came back wasn't really him. That I did the right thing by letting him go. I went back to work. I started seeing a therapist, though I couldn't tell her the truth. I told her about grief, about loss, about learning to live alone after losing a spouse. She prescribed medication. The pills help me sleep, but they don't stop the dreams. In my dreams, I'm standing at the edge of that void in the cemetery. Michael is there, but he's on the other side, in the darkness, reaching out to me. Behind him, I can see things moving. Shapes that were once human, shapes that never were. They're all reaching for me, and Michael is trying to hold them back. I can't keep them here forever, he says in the dream. Sooner or later, they're going to break through. What do I do? Don't let them in, no matter what they say, no matter whose voice they use. I wake up gasping, covered in sweat, and for a moment I can still see them. Standing in the corners of my bedroom, standing at the foot of my bed. Then I blink, and they're gone. But the nights are getting harder. Every night at 3:47, the doorbell rings. I don't answer it anymore, but I hear the knocking. I hear the voice. Sarah? Sarah, it's me. Why won't the key work? Sometimes it sounds like Michael. Sometimes it sounds like something else. Something that's learning to imitate him better and better each night. Sometimes it sounds like my father, who died when I was 12. Sometimes it sounds like my grandmother, who used to read me stories. Sometimes it sounds like the friends I've lost, the colleagues who've passed, everyone who's ever left me. Sarah, please let us in. We've missed you so much. And last week, I noticed something new. The voice isn't just at the front door anymore. It's at the back door, the windows, the walls. Sometimes I hear it coming from inside the house, from rooms I know are empty. Sometimes I hear it coming from inside me, a whisper in my own head. Sarah, let me in. It's so cold out here. It's so dark. I don't answer. I pull the covers over my head and I wait for dawn, and I try not to think about what's waiting outside. I try not to think about the faces I see in the windows when the sun goes down. I try not to think about the handprints that appear on the glass, pressed from the outside, fingers spread wide, reaching. But yesterday morning, I found something on the kitchen table. A gold ring, a wedding ring, his wedding ring, the one I buried with him, the one that should still be in the ground. I drove to the cemetery. I had to see. Plot 127 Maple Street. The headstone was there, undisturbed. The ground was packed and solid. Nothing had been dug up. Nothing had been moved. But when I got home, there was another ring on the table, and another, and another. 5 rings, all identical, all the same gold band I'd put on his finger the day we got married. There was a note underneath them, written in handwriting I recognized. Handwriting that shouldn't exist anymore. It said, "The door is still open. It will always be open. And sooner or later, you'll have to answer. We're so hungry, Sarah. We've been waiting so long." I burned the note. I threw the rings away. But this morning, they were back on the table. 6 of them now. I don't know what's coming. I don't know how much longer I can resist. Every night, the knocking gets louder. Every night, the voice sounds more like him. And every night, a part of me wants to open the door. Because what if I was wrong? What if he's still out there? The real Michael, trapped in the space between spaces, waiting for me to call him home. What if he's been knocking this whole time and I've been ignoring him? I'm writing this because I need someone to understand. I need someone to tell me I did the right thing. I need someone to remind me when the knocking starts tonight, why I can't open that door. My husband went missing for 3 years. He showed up at my door, hadn't aged a day, and asked why I changed the locks. I buried him 2 years ago, and now he's back. Or something is. Something that knows my name, something that wears his face, something that's very, very patient, something that's been knocking for 3 months without stopping, without sleeping, without giving up. The doorbell just rang. It's 3:47 in the morning. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to.